Ann Jacobs, born on February 11, 1813, died on March 7, 1897. Daughter of Delilah, who was the slave of Margaret Harnable. Her father was Daniel Jacobs, the slave of Andrew Knox, who also had another son who was named John S. Jacobs. Harriet was born in Edenton, North Carolina, in the fall of 1813. She escaped slavery and became an abolitionist speaker and reformer. When she was about 6, she found out she was the property of Miss Margaret Harnable. This kind mistress taught young Harriet how to read and sew. Margaret died, and then Harriet was taken to the Norcombe household. Dr. James sexually abused her. Later on, due to the fact that Dr. James Norcombe sexually abused her, Harriet formed a relationship with Samuel Treadwell Sawyer, who was a white attorney at the time with whom she had 2 children. Joseph, who was born in the year of 1815, and Louisa, born in 1833 and died in April. Jacobs faked her escape when she was actually living in the storeroom above her grandmother's home in 1835. She really escaped for 1842. Jacobs lived in the storeroom for 7 years. 10 years after the escape, Jacobs lived a tense and uncertain life as a fugitive slave. Harriet Ann Jacobs worked with her brother John S. Jacobs in the Rochester Anti-Slavery Reading Room and Bookstore above the offices of Frederick Douglass, who was at the time working in the newspaper called North Star. Harriet then wrote letters that were called Letters from a Fugitive Slave, sold under peculiar circumstances in June 21, 1853. She wrote a letter to the New York Tribune talking about the burden of her autobiography, which was about her sexual abuse. After receiving her freedom from Cornelia Grinwell, Harriet decided to write her autobiography, which helped many other slaves and people know about what female slaves often go through. This autobiography was published in 1861 under the pseudonym of Linda Brunt. Throughout Harriet's life, there were a number of different circumstances through which she went through that were a huge burden for her, such as Mr. Norcombe sexually abusing her. Harriet never gave up. She was smart enough to run away and began to write her own book, which was called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, even though she wrote it under Linda Brandt. For this, she will never be forgotten. Dear Harriet Jacobs, we dare not forget.